Good afternoon and welcome into Sports Talk on a Budget. It is Saturday, April 12th, year of our Lord 2025. Took a little hiatus, did my March Madness show, then actually went on a trip and watched March Madness with friends and family, which was awesome for the first two rounds of the tournament. Actually did really well in the tournament, had the final four teams, the two teams in the championship, and the team that won. Took too many risks early on to really have a great bracket, but had a pretty solid bracket once it kind of came down to the end. But now we're past March Madness, and this time of year is also one of my favorite times of year. We're less than 2 weeks away from the NFL draft, so that is going to be what this show is about today. I'm going to break down my top 5 players at each position group or each of the main position groups in the NFL draft, give you why I think those are the top 5 players at those positions, and then going to talk a little college football. I haven't really talked college football since basically the national championship game where Ohio State beat Notre Dame. Going to talk a little college football because we had some crazy stuff happen that would only happen in today's college football. The whole situation with Nico Iamaleava and the Tennessee Volunteers and how that kind of played out the last couple of days. Going to talk about that, give you my reaction as well. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the show. So as I mentioned, this is my kind of one of my draft preview shows. I'll have my mock draft episode next weekend. That's always a lot of fun. I'll give you my first round mock draft. Pick every team's first round player. That's really fun. But here's going to be my position rankings, and we're going to start with the most important position in the sport, probably the most important position in all of American sports, and that is the quarterback position. And I give you my top 5 quarterbacks for the 2025 NFL draft. At number 1, I'm going to go Cam Ward, quarterback from Miami. The reason why I like Cam Ward at number 1, I think he's got the highest ceiling of any of these players, any of these quarterbacks coming into the draft this year. He's kind of a little bit of a backyard player, kind of really reminds me of kind of like a poor man's Caleb Williams a little bit, where he runs around a lot, holds on the ball a little bit too much, but he can make plays, has a big arm, very athletic, very elusive in the pocket as well, and that's why I have Cam Ward at the number 1 quarterback position. At the number 2 quarterback position, I'm going to go with Shedeur Sanders. And Shedeur Sanders is one of those guys, he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of nothing in my opinion. He's good at pretty much almost everything you need to be good at. Good arm, not great arm. Good athlete, not great athlete. Good pocket awareness, not great pocket awareness. The one thing I would say you could probably say he's great in is his accuracy. He's probably the most accurate quarterback of all the quarterbacks in this draft, but he is just good at a lot of things. He's not really great at anything, and I think that's going to be a question mark for him heading into the league. I think he could be a steady starter, kind of like a Dak Prescott, a Jared Goff, a Kirk Cousins, how those guys were, maybe a little bit better athletic version of all those guys, but just kind of a steady starter in the league. And then the question mark is the whole Deion Sanders situation. He's never played for another coach outside of Deion Sanders' dad. And I'm talking Pee Wee football, high school football, and now the college ranks both at Jackson State and at Colorado. So that might be a question mark as well. There is a little bit of character concerns. I think those are a little overblown, but there is some there, and that's why I have Shedeur. That's one of the reasons why I have Shedeur Sanders as my number 2 quarterback. At number 3, I'm going to go with the quarterback from Ole Miss, and that is Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart has actually kind of risen up a lot of draft boards ever since the end of the season for Ole Miss and just the end of the college football season. There's some talking that he could go even higher than Shedeur Sanders. I don't see that happening, to be honest, but I think he is the 3rd best quarterback in this draft. Underrated athlete, underrated arm. He can be accurate at times. Now, his accuracy can wane a little bit, and he can take a lot of chances. Just watch the Florida film, and you can see him taking chances in that game that he shouldn't be, but really polished player, started at USC, went to Ole Miss, 3 years starter under Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. So Lane Kiffin is a really good offensive mind, knows how to develop quarterbacks, so you know that Jackson Dart has gotten the right tutelage. So that's why I have him as my number 3 quarterback in this draft. My number 4 quarterback's a little bit of a controversial take here from me, I think. But my number 4 quarterback is going to be Kyle McCord, the quarterback from Syracuse. Now, we saw Kyle McCord 2 years ago for Ohio State, and he was kind of underwhelming. Had some good games, had some not great games, did not play great against Michigan in that game to end the season. But this year at Syracuse, it looked like kind of the pressure was taken off of him, and he was able to go out there and enjoy the game of football and play football. pressure's not on you when you're at Syracuse versus when you're at Ohio State, especially coming after Justin Fields and C.J. Stroud, who had all their success. So Kyle McCord this year led the country in passing. He had the most passing yards. I think he was top 3 in passing touchdowns this season as well. So had a really good season. He's a guy. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism. He has a pretty good arm. He's really accurate. He's kind of a gunslinger a little bit sometimes as well. I just like his game in a kind of a weak quarterback class this year in 2025. I think he is your number 4 overall quarterback. At number 5, I'm going to go with Tyler Shough, the quarterback out of Louisville. Now, Tyler Shough's bounced around a lot. He started in Oregon and actually backed up Justin Herbert at one point. So that's crazy to think about since Justin Herbert's going into his 5th season, I believe, for the Chargers. But started in Oregon, backed up Justin Herbert, played a little bit after Justin Herbert left. Then he went to Texas Tech, played a little bit there, had some success there. Then this past year at Louisville had his most success, especially under their coach in Jeff Brom, who was a quarterback whisperer in his own right a little bit as well. So Tyler Shough has the size, tall, big, strong arm guy, a lot of experience, of course, in college football. He's actually older than I think like 6 or 7 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So the experience is there, the size is there, the arm strength is there. If a team can kind of harness all that and get the best out of him, I think he could have a really solid NFL career and be a starter in this league for a little bit as well. So those are my top 5 quarterbacks. Let me go ahead and move to my top 5 running backs. And this might be the deepest position group in the entire draft. There's a lot of good running backs in this draft. I'm only going to list 5, but this draft goes about 12, 13, 14 deep of running backs that I think could get a decent amount of playing time in the NFL in the future. But at number 1, I'm going to go with Heisman runner-up, Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty, he was one of the best players in the country this year, of course. He's a guy that he's a battering ram inside the tackles. He can run outside the tackles. He has the speed to get away from guys. And outside of this year, he wasn't really a receiving threat this year, but in the past for Boise State, he has been a receiving threat and can use that ability as well. He's pretty darn good in the blocking game as well. So that's why I have Ashton Jeanty as my number 1 running back in this class this year. At number 2, I'm going to go with the running back from North Carolina, Marion Hampton. Burner, guy who's good between the tackles, good out of the backfield. He played with Drake May, so you know he's going to catch balls out of the backfield as well. Just an all-around good running back, productive every time, every single season at North Carolina. A guy who can run past defenders, but can also run between the tackles, kind of your every down back. Number 2 running back for me is going to be Marion Hampton. And number 3 is going to be Caleb Johnston. And Caleb Johnston, that's a running back from Iowa. Now, Iowa, we know that they're all defense and they run the football on offense. And even though every team that plays Iowa knows that they're not going to be a threat in the pass game, they're going to want to run the ball and play defense. Even though that was the case, teams had issues stopping Caleb Johnston. He was the number 2 running back in the country when it came to yards after Ashton Jeanty. So this is a guy, he can be productive even when the game plan against their offense is to stop him. He can still be productive and still get his. That's going to translate well to the NFL. I think Caleb Johnston is going to be a really good player in the NFL. And then my last 2 running backs in the top 5 are both going to come from Ohio State. And at number 4, I'm going to go with TreVeyon Henderson. TreVeyon Henderson is a guy, he's a home run hitter as we saw throughout the playoffs and throughout his career at Ohio State. When he gets the ball in his hands and he gets the open field, he is pretty much gone. So he's great out of the backfield catching the ball. But what he really improved these last 2 years is his ability to run between the tackles. He got better and better at that the last couple of years and really improved there. So that's why I like TreVeyon Henderson as my number 4 running back. Number 5 running back, like I said, will stay in Columbus with the Buckeyes, and that'll be Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins was the bell cow at Ole Miss for Lane Kiffin and that offense. Decides to go to Ohio State, thinks he's got a better chance to win a championship, which he was right, and he did win a championship. But I think that'll help his NFL career because now you didn't take the carries. He would have had probably 200 more carries maybe at Ole Miss versus being at Ohio State as kind of sharing carries with TreVeyon Henderson. But Quinshon Judkins, he blocks really well in the pass game. He's a great in-between the tackles runner, but he's also underrated speed guy, and he's a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield just fine as well. Quinshon Judkins brings a lot to the table, and I think he will also be a very good running back in the NFL for years to come as well. And then my third position group, we're not going to do wide receivers or tight ends individually. We're going to do pass catchers. I'm going to give you my top 5 pass catchers in this year's NFL draft. I'm going to start at number 1 with the wide receiver, and that's going to be the wide receiver from Arizona, and that is Tedoroa McMillan. The things I like about Tedoroa McMillan, obviously productive every single season at Arizona. Kind of waned this year, but their quarterback play and their offensive play waned this year, and the offense was basically all through him. But he's a guy, my comp for him would be more of like a Mike Evans or maybe like a poor man's Mike Evans. Big guy, wide, he's got a big old catch radius. When you throw up 50-50 balls, they're basically like 80-20 in his favor. But he's got underrated speed. I know he only ran like a 4.5 40. He's got underrated game speed. He can get by people, and he can turn on the burners and score touchdowns that way. Really like Tedoroa McMillan. If he can land in the right offense with the right quarterback, could really have a stellar career. And then at number 2, I'm going to go to Texas and their wide receiver, Matthew Golden. Now, Matthew Golden was a guy that wasn't on a lot of draft kind of people's radar going into the season as a top-end first-round pick, but really solidified himself throughout the season. He was Quinn Ewers' number 1 option for Texas. He was Texas's best receiver, and they had a pretty loaded receiver group. Very polished, fast wide receiver. I think he ran about high 4.3s in the 40 time. Really good hands, really good after the catch. Can play both in the slot, but can also move outside and be productive there as well. Matthew Golden I like a lot, and I wouldn't be shocked if he is the number 1 wide receiver taken in this draft. At number 3, we're going to move to tight end, and we're going to move to the Penn State tight end, Tyler Warren. And Tyler Warren, outside of Travis Hunter, was the most versatile player in all of college football this year. He lined up at running back, he lined up at quarterback, he lined up at tight end, he lined up out at wide receiver. Everywhere he lined up and he had the ball in his hands, he was productive. He is great with yards after the catch. Big, strong guy. Good blocker, not great blocker, but great hands, great after the catch, and great instincts. I think Tyler Warren, especially with the right team and the right coach on offense, could really be a star in this league. And number 4, we're going to go back to a wide receiver, and I'm going to go with Travis Hunter. Now, we'll get into Travis Hunter a little bit here. Travis Hunter, I think I'm going to have him ranked in my defensive backs as well, so we'll see that. So I have him ranked for both positions that he's entering the league at. I don't think he's the number 1 player. I don't think he's the number 1 defensive back in this draft. I don't think he's the number 1 wide receiver in this draft. But he's top 5 in both, and that is impressive. That's impressive because I don't think I've ever seen anybody be top 5 in 2 positions unless it's going to be like guard and tackle, or center and guard, or maybe even like defensive line and nose tackle. Positions where it's like it's not really much of a difference when you move from position, but to be number 1 to be in the top 5 in your position group on one side of the ball, and to be in the top 5 in your position group on the other side of the ball is super impressive. Great ball skills, of course, for Travis Hunter. Good speed, not great speed, but very good speed. And just a guy who's a gamer. He's going to make plays, he's going to make catches, and he's going to make he's just going to be an exciting player to watch. So that's why I have him as my number 4 pass catcher in this draft. My number 5 pass catcher is going to be the tight end from Michigan, and that is Colston Loveland. Now, Colston Loveland didn't have a great year this year, mainly because Michigan's quarterback play wasn't great, and then he dealt with injuries throughout the season. But if you watch him in the 2 previous seasons with J.J. McCarthy, he was unquestionably the number 1 receiving option for the Michigan Wolverines, not just in their national championship year, but in the year before that when they won the Big Ten and went to the playoff as well. He is the better blocker of the 2 when it comes to him and Tyler Warren, but he may be just pretty close to as good a receiving threat as Tyler Warren. Now, the versatility isn't the same, and the yards after the catch isn't the same as Tyler Warren, but it's pretty close. Colston Loveland, I think he goes to the right team. I actually could really see him play with the Chargers and reunite with Jim Harbaugh, his former coach. But gets to the right team, right coach, right offense, I think could really flourish in this league. So that's why I got Colston Loveland as my number 5 pass catcher in this draft. And now we're going to move to the offensive line here a little bit, and let's shift gears to the offensive line. And I'm going to go all positions on the offensive line. We're not going to go exterior, interior offensive line. These are actually all going to be tackles, because tackle is the most important position, at least in my opinion, on the offensive line, especially left tackle if you have a right-handed quarterback, and of course right tackle if you have a left-handed quarterback. But let me go ahead and give you my top 5 offensive linemen in this NFL draft. starting with the left tackle from LSU, and that is Will Campbell. Yes, I've heard about the short arm stuff, and yes, it's not that big of a concern, but it's a small concern. But if you watch what he did at LSU in the SEC, two-time first-team All-SEC selection, All-American this last year. So he's playing in the toughest conference in the country, and he's playing well, and he's dominating. His PFF grades are really good as well, so that's why I got Will Campbell as my number one offensive lineman in this draft. At number 2, I'm going to stay in the SEC and I'll move over to Texas, and I like Kelvin Banks to be the number 2 offensive lineman in this draft. Reason why I like Kelvin Banks, now he kind of he struggled in both the games against Georgia, and that is a concern, but Georgia has a lot of guys going to be drafted in the first round, especially on the defensive front in that front 7, so it's no kind of it's nothing to kind of be upset about that you struggled against one of the better teams in the front 7 in the entire country. But either way, Kelvin Banks, don't have to worry about the short arms. He's got plenty of long arms there. Big, strong guy, good pass blocker. I think better run blocker, to be honest, but good, willing pass blocker as well. Really good player, big hands, long arms, has all the measurables of a really good offensive tackle in the NFL. Next, we're going to also stay in the SEC for my number 3 offensive lineman, and that is going to be Armand Membou, and that is the left tackle out of Missouri. This is a guy who shot up the boards, was kind of a workout warrior at the combine, ran really well, lifted well, did well on kind of the short and intermediate drills. He's a guy that's really raised up the draft board, and if you look back at his stats and what he did at Missouri these last couple of seasons, he's been a very solid player at the tackle position, really good in the pass protection, above average run blocker as well. So Armand Membou is going to be a guy. Wouldn't be shocked if he's the number 1 offensive lineman taken in this draft. He wouldn't be the first offensive lineman I would take, obviously, but he could still be that guy. He has that kind of upside in him as well. At number 5, we'll move to at number 4, we'll move to the Big Ten. And I'm going to go with offensive tackle Josh Simmons from Ohio State. Had the injury against Oregon, but before that game, he was one of the better tackles in the entire country, and you saw the drop-off, at least for about 5-6 games for Ohio State. They couldn't replace his production. It took them all the way until basically the playoff almost to really replace his production on a consistent basis. He was a guy they really missed after his injury against Oregon. He should be healthy now. He had a really good junior season, a really good sophomore season 2 years ago. He's a guy, still had a lot of starts under his belt. Big, strong guy, really good in the pass game, really good in the run game as well. I like Josh Simmons, my number 4 overall offensive lineman. And then rounding it at number 5, we're going to stay in the Big Ten as well. And we're going to move over to the West Coast. We're going to go to Oregon. And I have Josh Carnley Jr., the offensive tackle from Oregon, as my number 5 offensive lineman. This guy was a 5-star coming out of high school, really highly touted, rated recruit. Had a pretty solid career at Oregon. I thought he could have been better than he was. His tape is good, not great, but he has all the measurables and he has all the potential to be a really good starting offensive lineman in this league. And I think a lot of teams are going to like I said, his measurables and his potential, and that's why he's probably going to go higher than maybe his tape showed in college football. Now let's go ahead and move to the defensive side. I'm going to go to my defensive linemen. So this is going to be edge rushers, defensive tackles as well. We're going to start at number 1 here, and my number 1 defensive lineman in the entire draft is my number 1 overall player in the entire draft, and that is Abdul Carter from Penn State. Abdul Carter is basically a carbon copy. Played in Penn State, wore the same number, basically a carbon copy of Micah Parsons, but I think he has a chance to be even better. He was a guy, he's relentless in pass rush. He's good in the run game. He's a guy played with an injury against Notre Dame in that semifinal game, was really good and disruptive in that game as well. He was one of the best players in the country this year for Penn State, and he got better and better as the season went on. I think he has a chance to be a star in the NFL. So that's why I got Abdul Carter as my number 1 defensive lineman in the NFL draft. Number 2 is a guy I'm also super high on as well, and that is Mason Graham, the defensive lineman from Michigan. Mason Graham, along with his running mate that you'll hear in a couple of rankings here, basically almost single-handedly won the game for Michigan against Ohio State this past year. They dominated the Ohio State offensive line, and they kept that running game with Judkins and Trevion Henderson, took them out of the game, and then got after Will Howard as well. Mason Graham is a guy, He is just relentless in his pursuit of the quarterback. He's relentless in the run game as well. He's kind of like a bigger version of like a Aaron Donald. He's kind of like your next wave guy that could be like an Aaron Donald, a Cam Hayward, a J.J. Watt. I know that's high praise, but I'm really high on Mason Graham. I think he is one of the top players in the draft and can be a star in the league for years to come as well. And then at number 3, I'm going to go back to the defensive end position. I'm going to go with Mykel Williams from Georgia. This was a guy, 5-star recruit coming out of high school, has all the measurables, size, speed, length, has everything you're looking for in defensive end. Wasn't the most productive guy until this past year for Georgia. Had a really good year this year. Ate Kelvin Banks for lunch, basically, in both those games against Texas. Ate him up. Gave him issues all game long in those games. Mykel Williams is a guy, like I said, he has all the measurables, he has all the potential, and now he put that production together this past year for Georgia. His upside's really high as well. I think he could be a really good player in the NFL for years. Let's go ahead and move to our number 4 position, to our number 4 ranking at the defensive line position. That's going to stay in the SEC. I'm going to go with Walter Nolan, the defensive lineman from Ole Miss. Also played at Texas A&M as well. Was productive in both places. Super productive this year for Ole Miss. This past year was probably the best defense Ole Miss has had maybe ever. And it was basically built off of their defensive front behind guys like Walter Nolan, who can get after the quarterback, but also play really well in the run game as well. Walter Nolan in a stacked, as you can see, I'm really high in the defensive lineman in this draft. In a stacked defensive lineman draft, I think Walter Nolan is going to be another one of those guys that is going to have a long, successful NFL career. And then rounding out the top 5 defensive linemen, we're going back to the state of Michigan. We're going back to the University of Michigan, and we're going with Kenneth Grant. And Kenneth Grant, along with Mason Graham, like I said, those two basically single-handedly won the game for Michigan against Ohio State this year. But Kenneth Grant, him and Mason Graham together were just a deadly connection. They were nightmares for quarterbacks. They were nightmares in the run game as well. Both those guys fed off each other. Both those guys, I believe, can be stars in this league at the defensive line position and can be decades, potentially plural, long starters in this league as well. Really like Kenneth Grant. Love Mason Graham. I think both those guys can be studs in the NFL, and those are my top 5 defensive linemen in this draft. Let's go now to my top 5 linebackers. This was a position, not a great position of strength in this draft, but there is some underrated players here, guys that can make an impact and start pretty much from day one for the teams that select them and can really make an impact on the defense. We're going to start in, a place where defense is basically bred, and that is Georgia, and that is Jalen Walker. Another guy, you look at these Georgia players that come into the league, especially on the defensive side, and it looks like they're basically kind of just chiseled and tailor-made to play the positions that they play. Jalen Walker is another guy like that. Has all the measurables, speed, size, good tackler, good in coverage and space as well. He's a guy that's going to have a successful NFL career, barring any kind of injuries. I really like his upside and his production as well. So Jalen Walker is my number 1 linebacker in this entire draft. Number 2, we're going to stay in the SEC, and we're going to go to Jahad Campbell from Alabama. Jahad Campbell's another guy. Not the fastest guy, rangy though, good tackler, good in space, has all the measurables as well. Just another player coming from a blue chip program like Alabama, like Georgia is as well, that knows how to play the position that they're asked to do and knows how to play it at a high level and will play it at a high level in the NFL. At number 3, we're actually going to go out to the West Coast, into the Big Ten, and we're going to go to UCLA. And we're going to go to Carson Schwarzenegger, one of the most underrated players in this draft, in my opinion. This guy, his upside's, I think it's upside. His ceiling is super high. And he did not play on a good team, and he did not play on a good defense for UCLA. But if you watch UCLA's defense play, especially again games like the USC game, there was other games as well, he stood out. He stood out on their defense. It was like, hey, this is not a good defense, but who the hell is that guy? Who is that guy? He's all over the field. He's making tackles. He's in the backfield. He's knocking down. He's breaking up passes. Who is that guy? He stood out. And I think because he had to play with the adversity and not being on one of the better teams in the country, being at UCLA, that's what I think could even bode well for him. So that's why I like Carson Schlesinger as the number 3 linebacker in this draft. At the number 4 linebacker, we'll go ahead and move back to the SEC, and I'm going to go with Demetrius Wright. This is a guy that came on this past year, had a really productive year. Another guy from the SEC, kind of has all those measurables. He's not as much of a measurable freak like Jahad Campbell or Jalen Walker, but he still has the good speed, good size. He's good tackler, not a great tackler, but a guy I think gets in the right system with the right defensive coordinator, maybe a rotational guy for the first year or two, but once he kind of gets some experience under his belt, could really be a guy to kind of take that next step and be a long-term starter in the NFL. And then finally, rounding out my top 5, this is going to be a little controversial. We'll stay in the SEC, but this is a guy I was super high on throughout the season. I love his heart. I love the way he plays the game. He is one of those guys that is going to play 110% on every single play, and that is going to be Danny Stutzman, the linebacker from Oklahoma. He's going to give you everything. Captain of the Oklahoma defense, was one of the most recognizable players on that defense, gave some of his NIL money to some walk-ons that came onto the team as well. This guy is a guy you want in your locker room, but not just that, you want in your huddle on the defensive side. But it's not just like he's a try-hard or a guy that works really hard. He's also got the skills to play the position at a high level, which he did at Oklahoma. Their offense was nothing to write home about, but their defense was pretty solid this past year. So Danny Stutzman was the leader of that defense, and I think gets in the right system with the right coach, can kind of take on that leadership role at a young age in the NFL. I think he could have a really bright NFL future as well. And then we'll finish out my top 5 rankings with my top 5 my top 5 defensive backs in the NFL draft. We're going to start back in the SEC. I know there's been a lot of plays from the SEC, but it is the best conference, even though I think the Big Ten is closing the gap. It may have closed that gap as the best conference in college football. The SEC is still slightly ahead. But let's go ahead and start with my number 1 defensive back in this draft, and that is going to be Dodier. Dodier, the cornerback from Texas, really came on this year. Really good cover corner. Had to cover the wide receivers of Ohio State. Covered why am I blanking on his name? The number 1 wide receiver from Ohio State, kind of shut him down. I know they kind of bracketed coverage over to him, but still, really good player. Had to cover some really good wide receivers throughout the season in the SEC. Did that well as well. Good ball skills, good length for him. He's a bigger guy as well, and he's good with the ball in his hand after the catch when he intercepts it. So I like Dodier as my number 1 DB in the NFL draft. At number 2, it's going to be Will Johnson. Will Johnson had the injuries this year, kind of was in and out of the lineup. But when he's in the lineup, and if you watched his freshman and sophomore seasons at Michigan, he was not just one of the best corners in the country his first 2 years in college football. He was one of the better players in the country in college football. Elite ball skills. Will Johnson has elite ball skills, can go after the football and make plays going after the football. He is an absolute freak in that way. And then when he gets the ball in his hands, it's over. Touchdown, it's over. He is a playmaker with the ball in his hands, but he's a good cover corner. He's good in kind of the 50-50 ball situation. Like I said, elite ball skills in Will Johnson is what he has there. That's why I have him as my number 2 cornerback. If there wasn't the injury concerns that he's had kind of throughout his career a little bit at Michigan, he would be my number 1 defensive back in this draft. At number 3, and my number 3 defensive back is Travis Hunter. So as you heard earlier, I had him as a number 4 pass catcher in this draft. I'm as a number 3 defensive back in this draft. If truth were to be told, I think it depends on where Travis Hunter goes. If he's drafted in the top 3 to either the Giants or the Browns, I think he's going to be more of a corner. If the Patriots end up with him at number 4, I think he'd be more of a wide receiver. I believe he is a better corner than wide receiver, and he is one of the top 3 corners, defensive backs in this draft. Great elite ball skills like Will Johnson. The size isn't great. I wish he would be about 15, 20 pounds heavier, but he's a guy, knows what to do with the ball in the air. Good, not great cover guy. Didn't have to cover a lot of great wide receivers while he was in the Big Ten. 2 years ago in the Pac-12, he got torched in games against USC. He got torched against games against Washington State, Oregon was not great in coverage against some of the elite talent that he played in those games in the Pac-12. But either way, Travis Hunter, great athlete, unreal athlete. I think he'll end up being a corner in this league unless he ends up getting drafted by a team like the Patriots or the Panthers or something like that. But I think he's the better overall corner, and that's what the position I think he's better at, and that's why he's my number 3 defensive back in this draft. At number 4, we'll go back to Georgia, and that's Malachi Starks. Another guy, just like I said, Georgia just seems to churn out defensive players, and you might as well draft him because they're darn good NFL football players, and Malachi Starks is going to be another one. Good ball skills, good in coverage, good in zone, good in man. He can kind of do it all. Malachi Starks, my number 4 defensive back in this draft, will be a really good NFL player as well. And then at number 5, a guy I think has a high upside, had a good season this last year, gets in the right system. I think he could be really good in the NFL, and that is Nico Iamaleava, the cornerback from South Carolina. Love his versatility. He can play safety a little bit as well. But he's a guy, like I said, had a productive year this past year at South Carolina, came on towards the end of the year, good ball skills, good in coverage, not great in either one, but good in both of those. And a guy, I think he ends up in the right situation, maybe as the number 2 corner, not the number 1 guy kind of following around the number 1 wide receiver, but ends up as kind of like a number 2 corner on the other side of an elite corner or a top-end corner. I think could be a really good player in the NFL for a long time. So those are my top 5 players at each position group in the NFL draft. Please let me know in the comments if I missed somebody or guys you think that should have been in some of the top 5s. But let's go ahead and finish out the show with my other topic, and that's going to be in college football. We're going to talk about kind of the Nico Iamaleava situation that just went down this past week and pretty much the last 3 days at Tennessee. So about midway through the week, I want to say it was either Tuesday or Wednesday, the news dropped that Nico Iamaleava, the junior quarterback at Tennessee, 5-star quarterback in the 2023 class, was okay last year. We'll get into his stats a little bit, but let me go ahead and just break down some of the news. Was holding out of spring camp and was not showing up to practice. And this is kind of the first holdout situation that we've seen in college football in regards to an NIL collective situation. That was reported, I believe, on Wednesday of this week. Then what happened this morning, and there was kind of a back and forth. He was supposed to get $2 million on his NIL deal this year. Reportedly his representatives, whether that's his agent or his parents, people around him wanted it to be up to $4 million and believed he earned it off of his play last year. We'll get into that in a little bit, but that's what they believed. Back and forth between Tennessee all week. This morning it was reported that head coach of Tennessee, Josh Heupel, decides nope, no players bigger than the program. See ya. Basically told Nico Iamaleava where the door is, and now Nico Iamaleava will be in the transfer portal when it opens next week. So let's break down this situation. So like I said, this is kind of the first holdout situation that we've seen in college football. This is very, very common in the NFL ranks. You saw this all last year with guys like Dak Prescott, guys like CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, holding out because their contracts, whether they were the franchise tag and they didn't get a long-term contract, or they never got their long-term contract and didn't want to play on the last year of their deal. That is an NFL professional football thing. This is the first of its kind, really, that's gone public in college football. And to me, I hate this. I absolutely hate this for college football. There should never be a situation like this. When NIL was created, or when it was allowed to happen in college athletics, NIL stands for name, image, and likeness. It was supposed to be meant that you can go profit off of your name, image, and likeness as a college athlete. You can be on commercials. You can go do a signing event at the mall or whatever and give out memorabilia that you sign and make money off of that. You could make money off of the merchandise sales that your team's doing. You can make money off of that. Players are making money off of being in video games. You can make money that way. That was what NIL was supposed to be. What it's become is these collectives that are put together by donors and all these people that are somewhat connected with the program, because it can't be the coaches and it can't be the exact administration. There's general managers in college football now, and what it's become is exactly what it was not supposed to be, and that is pay for play, and that has become basically bidding wars, whether it's in recruiting, whether it's in the transfer portal, whether it's every year when your rosters turn over at the end of the year and in spring again, it's bidding wars that these coaches and administrations and players are going back and forth with each other because they want to get more money out of their collectives. And right now, it is killing college sports, especially college football and college basketball. And a situation like this with Nico Iamaleava, a huge name in college football, playing on a team that was in the college football playoff last year, a team that plays in the number one conference as of right now, at least, in college football, holding out from his team like he's a professional football player, like he's freaking CeeDee Lamb or Brandon Ayuk last year. This was a nightmare scenario, in my opinion, for college football. This cannot happen. This has to be rectified sooner rather than later. We've all been hearing that the revenue sharing model is supposed to be coming soon. Don't know when that's going to land. I know that there's been kind of back and forth about legislation on that, where players are going to be paid based on the revenue that their programs make, not just the football program, the entire athletic program. Players of each sport are going to make based on what their athletic program makes. There's going to be different tiers for sports that make more revenue, things like that. Yes, but that's how that has been proposed and been talked about, and it's supposed to be the future. We're not there yet, and we don't know how long it's going to take for us to get there because of right now, the system that we're in right now with NIL and the transfer portal, it's broken. And the NCAA opened the NIL and the transfer portal years ago and just kind of made it a free-for-all, kind of made it the Wild West. No guardrails, no restrictions, no anything, no contracts, no anything. So now you have these fake agents working for these kids that are stealing from these kids and demanding money from these coaches and these programs. You have parents that are trying to get more money out of these programs as well. And you have kids that are being led astray by either the program that they're going to play for, the collective that's connected with this program, or by the people that are supposed to be having their best interests at heart, whether it be their agent or their family members or their parents. And so the biggest loser in this whole scenario, in this whole situation, in my opinion, is probably going to be Nico Iamaleava. Because now you leave a top-tier program that was just in the college football playoff last year in Tennessee, a coach in Josh Heupel who's already put two quarterbacks from Tennessee that he's coached in the NFL that were drafted in the NFL draft. Now you're leaving him. And you know what? I don't think the grass is going to be greener. I think it's going to be difficult for him to find top-end landing spots. If you look at his numbers last year, 2,600 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 3 rushing touchdowns, 22 total touchdowns. He was 8th in yards and touchdowns just in the SEC alone, so middle of the pack because there's only 16 teams in the SEC. Middle of the pack as a quarterback in the SEC. And like I said, this has to be rectified as soon as possible because the people that are going to lose the most in these situations are going to be the student athletes. And then the student athletes, like kind of like a dead word at this point. They're basically professional athletes. But either way, the people that are going to get hurt and affected by the most in these situations are going to be the players. And I think the biggest loser when the dust settles, when this situation is passed and the dust settles, could be, and I think probably will be, Nico Iamaleava in this situation. We've seen it before in other situations in other professions, whether you look at just, show business, whether it was, Shirley Temple back in the day, Macaulay Culkin, Britney Spears, young, famous people, their parents are trying to get more money into the organizations that they're working for. Similar situation here with Nico Iamaleava. His dad seems to be really involved in pushing for them to get more money. The agent and his mom are also involved as well. So what you're trying to do is this kid was going to make $2.5 million this year playing, or close to $2.5 million this year playing for Tennessee. And now you want another $1.5 million. And because of that, now he's going to get nothing from Tennessee because there's no contracts in this shit. He's going to get nothing from Tennessee. And now he's going to have to find a situation that he's going to have to find a school that's going to pay him $4 million, and that's going to start him from day one, even though he's going to miss all the spring practice, not going to know the players, not going to know his teammates. He's going to have to jump into fall camp with whatever team he ends up with and ball out, or he's going to be a backup. And you know what happens with $4 million backups? they end up back in the transfer portal because their coach and program told them to, because they can afford to pay that much to a backup quarterback. So like I said, at the end of the day, the person I think that's going to be affected most in a negative way in this situation is going to be the player in Nico Iamaleava. I hope not, because I think the potential is there with this kind of player. But the situation around him, whether it's his parents, whether it's his agent, whoever is around him trying to get more money out of these schools for him, has soured the well for Nico Iamaleava. He may find himself playing in the group of 5 or a lower power 4 team, but either way, I think it's going to be tough for him to kind of get back to the level of play that he could have been playing at Tennessee, and that's really sad to see. And this is something, like I said, this has to be rectified as soon as it can be, because this is not college sports. This is not college sports. This is not college football. I'm all for the players being paid. I'm all for them profiting off of their name, image, and likeness. But I'm not all for having to hear about one of the players holding out of spring practice like he's fucking CeeDee Lamb trying to get his second contract in the NFL. That's not college football. That's not right. This needs to be fixed as soon as possible before it swallows up the whole sport. So that has been my show today. Thank you for watching and listening. If you like this podcast here, please like and subscribe right down here. Leave a comment. Whether you like the audio version, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and pretty much anywhere you get your podcast. However, if you like the video version, it is right here on YouTube. Smash that like, smash that subscribe. Thank you again for watching and listening, and have a great day.